Welcome back to Metropole Debrief. This is Social Watch, where my mic is off and your voice comes on. We want to sample some of the feedback or some of the thoughts that you've been sharing online with regards to refugees in the wake of COVID-19. What are some of the fears that you have for them? How do you think they're coping? And what are some of the things that you'd like to see governments do to just safeguard the well-being of refugees? We'll start in Twitter. Let's see here at CS Mibenge says 0% access to soap is a reality in some humanitarian settings in the MENA region. Courtney Phelps. So Mibenge is just addressing some of the issues that I even raised with Dana, saying, how does the situation look like in refugee camps? And she's saying they do not have access to soap. So that means if you don't have soap, even if you wash your hands with water, then you're doing very little or nothing to protect yourself against COVID-19. And if there's no access to soap, then most probably there won't be access to water. So this just goes to show the dire need of hygiene in refugee camps and in the MENA region. Let's take a look at another tweet. At Rukanik says, I hope #coronavirus will not spread to Syria and refugee camps all over the Middle East. They're the most vulnerable and cannot imagine how they could fight the virus. #refugee coronavirus. So just raising a point here, we all know that Syria is a region that has been marred by civil unrest for a long time, and there is massive destruction in the country, and many people have been displaced in the country. They either have gone to neighboring countries or are still displaced in their own countries, and he's just raising concerns over the state of these refugees, that should the virus spread in this country, remember it's a war-torn country, how will even supplies get to these people? Sometimes they have to call for ceasefires in order to get food and health equipments to people in Syria. So should coronavirus spread in these refugee camps, then it will mean many people might lose their lives or suffer the repercussions of the disease because of the war and the state of the country as is. Let's take a look at another tweet. At Yash says 6.5 million #refugees in sub-Saharan Africa have received little attention, many living in precocious conditions, already weakened by malnutrition and diseases. This just goes to speak on the point where the WFP cut down funding and food donations to most of the refugee camps in Africa. And Dana says that there are refugees that in certain countries they own land, they can do business. But remember, she also said that COVID-19 has disrupted this chain. People cannot produce, people cannot do business. So they are left very, very financially vulnerable. And this just means that they risk starvation, malnutrition, and the situation of the standard of their lives is not as good or is not as standard as that of other human beings. Quite a disheartening number here, 6.5 million refugees. Let's take a look at another. At Hydra House 74 says, what plan for Dadaab camps in regard to prevention and response mechanisms? Well, earlier on in the interview, Dana said before even coronavirus was able to spread in camps, they were able to set base there and try and build isolation facilities, increase hand washing and water points. And there are also people in the camps that are manufacturing soaps and protective gear, for example, masks at affordable prices, where most people in the camps can afford. But also, let's always bear in mind that even in the refugee camps, there are those who are vulnerable, the most vulnerable amongst the vulnerable. So just questioning, is enough being done to protect everyone in those refugee camps? And it will be very interesting to just hear from you, if you have been to one of these camps or you know somebody in the camps, what's the situation like there? Let's take a look at another tweet. At Melissa Fleming says, worrying, I have seen the crowded conditions in the Dadaab refugee camp and how health services were under pressure. Agencies supporting government to mitigate risk and prevent further COVID-19 spread. Now, Melissa is raising a very pertinent point here, because remember in part one, we said we have about 494,000 refugees in the country, about 40% in Dadaab, 40% in Kakuma. That's about 200,000 plus people in one refugee camp. Now, the point on crowding, remember coronavirus, the first thing you should do, physical distancing. It's not like they have the luxury of space, as is most of those camps are overcrowded. So one, they do not have the luxury of social distancing. And also when you have 200,000 people, how much water and soap can you provide in a day to ensure that they can wash their hands at every instance where they feel like they have touched surfaces? So just saying, that is a worrying trend. And also health services are under pressure. Let's also remember that most of the health services in these facilities are provided by aid workers, by UNHCR workers, by UN workers. So when they are trying to protect themselves from COVID-19, as Dana mentioned, sometimes the visits are cut from 2 times a month to once a month. Now imagine if a medical camp is coming to the camp once a month, the pressure that the doctors are under just to be able to provide treatment. And also COVID-19 has put a lot of pressure on other health conditions. For example, malaria. People are afraid to seek medical attention because they might get sick, or COVID-19 is being given top priority to means health of other people might be in jeopardy. Let's take a look at another tweet. Adview Achille says, the world should know that refugees are not a threat, but benefit to host communities. Let's work together to make this world a wonderful place for all. This is such it's a deep tweet, and it's well thought out, and it's very empathetic because it sees the refugees from another perspective, not just as refugees, but as human beings that need love, that need compassion, that need care. And I think for Debrief Take Home, we'll be deriving from this. But before that, we want to take you out on the streets. You know, as always, we would like for you to always be a part of this conversation. And today, we are making it as intimate as possible because I have never been a refugee. Probably Dana is talking from a perspective where she works with them. But what do the real refugees have to say about their experience with COVID-19? This is Straight Talk.
Millions of people have been affected by civil wars in Africa, making them to be displaced and become refugees in foreign lands. In this episode of Street Talk, we talk to Fidel, a South Sudanese refugee here in Kenya, who tells us his story.
I'm Fidel Day, a student at Kenyatta University, and a South Sudanese by nationality.
So how long have you been in the country?
I've been in Kenya for the last 13 years. Yeah.
So you've said you're from South Sudan, right?
Yeah.
Why did you come from South Sudan to Kenya?
Okay. I can say that I came to Kenya for 2 reasons. 1, running away from civil war. 2, seek for a better life through education. Yeah.
Okay, let's start from civil war.
Yeah.
How was it living in a country that is in war?
Oh, it is pathetic and horrible because you understand that war is about running and killings and displacement. So it is pathetic, and I'm happy that I arrived in Kenya safely. Yeah.
Okay, there was war,
yeah.
Then there is displacement, then there is a refugee.
Yes.
Tell us the life in the refugee camp.
Okay. You know, in South Sudan by then, there were no IDP camps. So if you really want to run away, unless you cross the border to another country, like some went to DRC, Congo, others went to Central Africa, others came to Kenya, others went to Uganda, others went to Ethiopia. Yeah, because you know we were united by then until we separated in 2011. So there were no IDP camps by then because IDP camp used to be bombed by Al-Bashir Air Force. So the displacement was catastrophic, and I can say that the only way you can survive if you happen to have missed the bullet is to cross the border, go to another country, like the way we have South Sudanese here in Kakuma, others in Dadaab. I footed for 3 days until I reached Nadapal. Now from Nadapal, UN lorries or trucks cross over to pick you up. Yeah, because it is bushes. Yeah, so that's how I crossed. I walked all the way within South Sudan interior up to Nadafal. You know, Nadafal is only 10 kilometers away from the Kenyan border, Turkana County. So from there, UN will come with its trucks or lorries and pick you up, take you to Kakuma. So from there, you will find your way within. In the camp, life is hard because you know that it is a crowded place. The resources or the kind of social amenities or services being provided by the UNHCR, they are limited because people are too many. So when you are dividing food ratio, it has to be equated maybe to 15 days, and then after 15 days you will get another ratio. So it is a matter of survival. It's not about satisfactory because in everything you cannot get certified. Yeah, on the economic scales. Yeah, there are some other things you have to avoid because you cannot have them. And you understand that UNHCR is an organization being supported by UN members, including Kenyan. They contribute. Yeah, every country contribute. And you know, in Kakuma, refugees in Kenya are not the only refugees. We have refugees in Syria, Southeast Asia, or Middle East, or even North America. So life is tough because the facilities are limited. People are too many, crowded. You come to term of water provision. You know, there's water rationing because maybe in a day, taps can be open only for 2 hours.
Wow.
Yes, 2 hours. And if you have your jerry cans or containers, you have to fill them within that time. The same to education. This is the schools are crowded. Yeah, remembering that UN has limited to provide everything. So classes are always crowded from primary to secondary, and also to vocational training like polytechnics, or youth polytechnics. They are always crowded. So, and whatever the UN provide doesn't equate what you could have at your will if you have something. So I can say that life is fair so long as you survive. That's number one. The rest can be sorted later.
I also spoke to Nene, a South Sudanese living in Kenya, on the challenges she faces as a foreigner and whether the government has done enough to keep her safe.
Also here we were affected by staying at home, and also we were not to have those kind of interaction anymore. Also in terms of economic, most people have lost jobs back home as well, and also like it's not like before, people have some cuts of their salaries. So to survive in a foreign country has really become a challenge.
You look at the way refugees are being allowed to come to up country like cities, like Nakuru or Eldoret, they are traveling.
Yeah.
And if a refugee have some resources, they can go to boarding school or public school. If they can afford to rent houses, well, they rent, and then you live like the way I'm here in Nairobi. So it is good.
Well, that wraps up this segment on Street Talk. Back to you, Ondiro, in studio.
Well, quite interesting facts right there, and an interesting perspective, because sometimes we can always speak about these things from a point of privilege because we can only sympathize, but walking a mile in their shoes, I'm 100% sure would be so painful. And as Dana said, they're very resilient and they do all of it with grace. And if there's one thing we could borrow from them at this time is resilience. I know it's difficult, even on me, it's really difficult, and sometimes it takes a toll, but we can borrow a thing or two from the people we've just watched. Resilience, resilience, resilience. Time now for debrief take home. Well, I'm just driving from the last tweet that says we need to take care of refugees and we need to ensure that we are compassionate towards them. I am 100% sure that we all know a refugee, or we have interacted with one. I went to school with some, primary school, and not even once did it ever strike me that they were South Sudanese kids. They were just my friends, Catherine and Helen. We went to school together, we played together, we studied together, and the system was in a way that they could feel whole. they could feel like human beings. They didn't feel like they were refugees. They felt like they were children in a place that they were valued and they were getting an equal opportunity, just like children of this land. In the wake of COVID-19, it is a humble plea that we extend the same compassion, love, and kindness to these people. And we see fundings keep being reduced every single day. Where you can donate, donate, donate. Some of these people depend on that shilling or 10 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 that you will donate to survive. Oh, finally, before I let you go, we also have a way in which you can always talk to us at Metropole TVKE, at Ondiro Ganga, hashtag Metropole Debrief, or you can always send us an email at metropoletv.co.ke. That's all for Metropole Debrief today. We'll see you again next week, same place, same time. Until then, spread kindness and love.